I did want to do a update video for the JFK, not necessarily, like because I do think he's overrated still. And that opinion hasn't changed from last year. But what gets me is that it's almost seems like when you look at every single presidential election, there's always those two or three different candidates that people say are Kennedy-esque, remind them of Kennedy, have that same youth and whatever. And I hate that. Like I hate that he is the selling point and the sticking point for our idealized version of a politician as far as the media is concerned. I've seen O'Rourke called Kennedy-esque. I've seen that stupid mayor called, akin to him. I've seen who else was Tim Ryan. He tried to emulate him. I know Tulsi mentioned him in her, I think it was her kickoff speech that I liked, bar her comments about him. Like, I don't know why he's someone that people, for whatever reason, feel this weird attachment to. Because, like, here's my thing. I've read about his career, like as a senator, as a president before that. And I'm sorry to tell you, but other than in World War II, where he, the PT 109 went down and, he did this thing about leadership and going over to the island and carving the coconut, the coordinates to where they were. His career in every part of public service was meh. Like as a senator, right? Known for doing, oh yeah, Ruben, it's ridiculous. She has nothing in common with him, and that's a compliment. But like, here's my thing, right? So as a senator, there's only two things that are significant about him. One of them is being a 1956 Democratic vice presidential nominee and losing on the ballot, so it still didn't turn into anything, and being McCarthy's best friend. Like, I guarantee you, if he had just been a senator, he would have a terrible legacy and nobody would talk about him at all, because he would primarily be known for being the Democrat that was friends with the Republican that was calling everybody communist and didn't agree with him. And then let's look at the presidential record. Cuban Missile Crisis, which, and you actually can see this in Gravel's interview with Jimmy, where he was talking about how it wasn't even him and Khrushchev who like actually affect anything. It was another guy whose name I'm blanking on, because that's how little they talk about him. Civil rights, it's like, okay, you give a couple of speeches, you don't really want to bother or deal with this. And then Johnson's the one who signed Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, but then he, gets demonized and said to be the one who didn't care about minorities. Okay. What's another issue? I guess calling for us to go to space before the end of the decade. And it's like, even with that, it still wasn't him who did it. Like, NASA started under Eisenhower, and the only reason it even went through is because of everyone else. Because, okay, you guys are still talking about that female. But, the bottom line is that I really don't understand why people have this weird obsession with this president. Like, it is so crazy to me that you've had 44 individuals, technically, I know people say 45, and it is 45. Grover Cleveland was 22 and 24. I have to keep explaining that over and over again until my head explodes. It makes no sense to me. You can have all these different presidents. You can have a bunch of them who have high esteemed reputations and have respectable careers in certain aspects of policy. And the only person they can bring up and try to make seem like they were some darling angel is the one who happened to get his head blown. And that was a sad, terrible thing. But I'm sorry, it doesn't make you a person that everyone needs to be like and, should be the idealized version of who a politician is. Like, they talk more about needing more Kennedys in Washington than they do Roosevelt. It's like, you guys are insane. I mean, Roosevelt was one of the best Democrats that ever lived. At least if they idolized him, it would make sense, because he's known for, actual policy substance. And then, like, on civil rights, they want to mention the speech he gave in response to the Alabama stuff, but we're not going to mention that it was him who ordered the wiretapping, or rather, it was under his tenure with RFK, and I love RFK. RFK is one of my favorite politicians, but it was under that tenure that they started the wiretapping of MLK that lasted for the rest of his life. So this like great, terrific civil rights record. And look, I'm not one of these people who's trying to make the Republic like I'm not Candace Owens, so I'm not going to try to make it seem like Democrats these evil people and you need to go and worship the Republic. None of that. I'm just saying all this stuff that is policy related that these people could talk about and cite as examples of him doing stuff that mattered isn't really that good. In the Senate, only known for being a vice presidential candidate that, again, was unsuccessful, and being the best friend of a guy who is literally America's most hated senator at this point. And then as a president, just like doing stuff that doesn't, it's all rhetoric, and the stuff he did sign, no one even remembers because it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I really think if Johnson was maybe 10 years younger or 20 years younger, and did the things that he did, he would get completely like he would overshadow Kennedy in every department whatsoever. I mean, it would be because Johnson, and I've been called a stalwart supporter of his, and I said, look, I hate the Vietnam War, but Johnson was a much more effective politician than Kennedy. That's why he was the Senate Majority Leader. You don't get that position back then without being a negotiator. People, trash like Schumer and Pelosi and McConnell, they're all in those positions, and we've been over this before, because they buy out the people who are in office alongside them. They give their contemporaries as part of their caucus money to get them in that position. I'm not exactly sure if McConnell is that case, but with Schumer and Pelosi, that's definitely the reason. So, this is in the pre-Citizens United, be a donor hoe state of the U.S., of its government. Becoming Senate Majority Leader was actually about having some skills. I mean, Johnson could get along with all those Dixiecrats and the progressives and liberals. Like, he was really a talented person. And I hate the fact that, he gets sidelined and completely ignored so people can keep trying to bootlick for JFK. Man, you guys are having a chat about all kind of stuff. James says, well, Kennedy is popular. That's why. Okay, but I'm saying, well, I'm aware of that. They actually did a poll where they said he has the highest approval rating. It's something like the highest net approval rating of all the presidents, which is pathetic. I didn't understand why that was. Like, he literally is the presidential version of go along to get along. Like, I don't want to offend anybody. I'll talk a good game, but not actually do anything. And just like Obama, I can name more things he did in office that were actually good than his supporters. Oh man. I love how a lot of these anti-war people that feel bad about the assassination like to pretend, oh, if Kennedy had lived, he wouldn't have gone into Vietnam and he wouldn't have sent all the troops that Johnson. It's like, man, if you really believe that he would have been this complete polar opposite of Johnson on that policy, I don't know what else to tell you, because it's like, what is the basis for thinking that? He didn't pick Johnson as his running mate because they have such massively huge different views. Even one of his supporters last year told me you shouldn't give Johnson credit for whatever he did, or you should give Kennedy half, or something like that, because the stuff came from Kennedy. So I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, shouldn't Kennedy also get blamed for Vietnam? Like, I mean, by his logic. And look, I think if someone escalates a policy, the person who does that should take the blame for it. And if they do something good, the person who did it should get the credit, not some person who, you want to believe was such a magical figure that just didn't happen to live to see to do these wonderful things. Like, no, you can't pick and choose the good and the bad about these people anymore. Or at least you can try, but it's not going to be effective. I just want some substance, man. Like, I see so much substance from Sanders. I see so much substance from Ro from Tulsi, from who else? Premilia, from how you pronounce her name, Jayapal. There's so many people that are good on issues, and it's like, why do we keep going back? If we're going to bring up presidents, we don't even bring up the ones that did stuff. Like, that's crazy. So I wanted to do a redo of that video because I just it baffles me. I've seen all these different candidates either bring up Kennedy or get compared to Kennedy, and it is insane. Like they act as if there's no other presidents or any other politicians on any level that can get attention from doing something that was good or like in a positive way. Now I know if you do something evil, then they compare it to somebody else evil. Like I know they had that one Trump, was it Thomas Farr? The one you might remember this, Ruben, the one Trump nominee who got in trouble because they used to work for Jesse Helms and we were supposed to hate him, forever. The senator from North Carolina, the one that Senator No. Like I know, they compared him to him because that was a negative thing, but it seems like the only person that ever gets, and I know they compared Graham to Strom Thurmond, but like whenever they want to talk in a good way about someone and use a past figure, it's always Kennedy. Like this is so bad that even when Obama ran the first time, guess what Ted Kennedy did? He reminds me of my older brother. It's like, oh my God, it's even in their own family. Oh, people love him for no reason. Sorry. Let's see. I don't think it was ever confirmed to be real or not. How many people don't know that? Okay, is there anything else here? You guys are going to weigh in on this? I want to hear the responses to why everybody loves Kennedy so much. They're in love with this man 50 years later, and they're so in love with him to where everybody else gets ignored. I actually had a joke that because I'm into like doing cartoons and adaptations of stuff, I would rather do an adaptation about every single other president's life, be it their presidency, their early life, their career, than JFK because it's the only one people just cover and cover and cover and cover over and over again. So overrated historical figure. Doesn't mean I hate him. Doesn't mean I think he was the worst one ever. But like, I'm sorry, he wouldn't come my top 20. Are people really in love with JFK that much? I guess it was cool during the civil rights era. I think no, he didn't have a problem with African Americans. He actually, under his tenure, we had the first Black Secret Service agent, so he didn't have a problem with them or us or whatever. It's the fact that if you look at his record as a whole, it doesn't make sense for him to be the only president people bring up in a positive light as a means of comparing aspirational politicians to to some past figure. Like I would rather be compared to Nixon. At least he did stuff. Man, progressive, me and all these progressives, we get into so many different conflicts. It's like, yeah, I'm the same person who likes the older Bush and Nixon. Fight me over it. I don't care. They are. They hate everybody, so it's hard to articulate stuff that we don't want to listen. But seriously, they love him, man. Like I think some of these people they would kill to go back in time and like have an affair with him. Like that's how insane this stuff is. So much hero worship. Oh, I know. Ruben, I'm fully aware. Joe was, the old man was an anti-Semite, a gangster. Yeah. He was all that in the bag of chips. I mean, what else would you call Kennedy's father? What else would I use to refer to him as? I could say Joe Kennedy, but people don't know his name. Like, dude, I guarantee you, if we went around and asked people to name the names of the fathers of 3 U.S. presidents, which I'm sorry, that is a very easy question if you remember that we've had 2 that were the parents of, later ones. I would say that 96% of Americans couldn't do that. I guarantee you. And it wouldn't even be because they couldn't name the one that what, because there's only two that have been father son. They couldn't even name the two that were father son. So it would be this hugely difficult thing, and it's really pathetic because there are multiple presidents who actually have the name of their father. I know Carter, James Earl Carter he is I believe junior, and his father was senior, and Obama is named after his father. So that's what makes it even more amusing. It's like, well, look at them scratch their heads and get all confused. All these people have the same name and they can't remember. Oh man. No matter the situation and the pressure, they still have the police under control. All that, I didn't know we were in 96. I mean, hey, we can go back to the year before I was born. It's all good. I only request that we go to the MGM Grand so we can stop Tupac's assassination. That'll be a dream come true. And then it's not even going to matter because he's still going to get into something else like 2 years later. Oh, that's shut up. I'm not gonna. I don't want to have a hate campaign just by saying someone's whatever. So that wasn't even meant to be negative toward him. It's just like that dark humor. Okay, man, I wish I pronounced your name. People like candy for the same reason they like Obama. They are smooth like butter, clean out, and portray a certain image. That is true because I actually read a article that was written by Politico where they were comparing all of the Democratic presidents that came after um, JFK, and they were saying that Obama was the only one who was able to channel the same air and esteem and whatnot. Like how Johnson didn't have the appearance, Carter didn't have the whatever. Clinton got caught with his pants down, and Obama was the only one who emerged and was so clear cut and whatever. So I could see that theory. Makes sense. I get that comparison. I do think actually you can make genuine comparisons between Obama and Kennedy. They both have public images that when you actually know the nooks and crannies of not only their presidencies but just like stuff outside of that, it makes so much sense that you would have a negative opinion of whatever that is related to them.